Book of Esther, chapter 4. We had just learned prior that Xerxes was influenced by Haman, an evil man who was influenced by the devil, to put out an order or an edict to wipe out all of the Jews, to wipe out God's people. This was a mass genocide that Haman was trying to introduce into the land. We learn how Mordecai and Esther would begin to respond in chapter 4. Let's dive into it. Verse 1. When Mordecai learned of all that had been done, he tore his clothes, he put on sackcloth and ashes, and he went out into the city, wailing loudly and bitterly. He was mourning, he was crying, he was concerned, he was worried, he was really mourning before the Lord what had taken place. But he went only as far as the king's gate, because no one clothed in sackcloth was allowed to enter it. In every province to which the edict and order of the king came, there was great mourning among the Jews, with fasting, weeping, and wailing. Many lay in sackcloth and ashes. There was concern. They were worried. They didn't know what to do. They were worried and in fear for their lives. And it is kind of unique how he gave an order that so many days later they would be killed. He didn't just put out the order to kill them. He put out the order that so many days later they would be killed. So in essence, I would think that would mean that they could run away or that they could escape somewhere else if they wanted to. But basically, they were purging the land of the Jewish people. Verse 4, when Esther's eunuchs and female attendants came and told her about Mordecai, she was in great distress. She sent clothes for him to be put on instead of his sackcloth, but he would not accept them. Esther was, and I like this about Esther, she was a very caring woman. She was a very considerate woman. You'll see, not only was she humble and submitted to authority in her life, not only did she seek wisdom, she also cared for the condition of others around her. And so she sent clothes for him to be cared for. She had a close relationship with her cousin Mordecai. Then Esther summoned Hathach, one of the king's eunuchs assigned to attend to her, and ordered him to find out what was troubling Mordecai and why. So Hathach went out to Mordecai in the open square of the city in front of the king's gate. Mordecai told him everything that had happened, including the exact amount of money Haman had promised to pay into the royal treasury for the destruction of the Jews. He also gave him a copy of the text of the edict for their annihilation, which had been published in Susa, to show to Esther and explain it to her. And he told him to instruct her to go into the king's presence to beg for mercy and plead with him for her people. Hathach went back and reported to Esther what Mordecai had said. Then she instructed him to say to Mordecai, all the king's officials and the people of the royal provinces know that for any man or woman who approaches the king in the inner court without being summoned by the king has but one law, that they will be put to death unless the king extends his scepter and receives them and spares their life. But 30 days have passed since I was called to go to the king. Basically, she said, it's been a while since the king's called for me. It's been a long time since he's seen me. It's not that he's upset for me, but he's not been close to me recently. I haven't been around him a whole lot recently. When Esther's words were reported to Mordecai, he sent back this answer. And this is such a powerful, powerful thing for us to understand as we get placed in different positions of leadership and different positions of influence. He says, do you think that because you are in the king's house, you alone of all the Jews will escape? For if you remain silent at this time, relief and deliverance for the Jews will arise from another place. He says, hear me, the Lord will rise up and defend his people. The Lord's not going to allow his people to die. The Lord's not going to allow his people to be exterminated. He says, but if you don't rise up, because I'm telling you, Esther, God has placed you in this position for such a time as this, you and your father's family will perish. And who knows but that you have come to your royal position, but for such a time as this. Maybe this wasn't a circumstance. Maybe this wasn't a coincidence. Maybe this was a divine appointment that was taking place. Then Esther sent this reply to Mordecai in verse 15 and 16. She said, go gather together all the Jews who are in Susa and fast for me. I love this directive that she gives. She says, go get together, start praying, start fasting, start believing. Impress upon the Lord, call upon the Lord, ask for favor. I'm going to go do what I need to do, but I want you to be moving on my behalf spiritually. It's such an incredible picture for us to learn as men and women of faith that we need to be praying and fasting for one another, and that we need to care about the things that are going on in the lives of one another. And we really do have spiritual influence. We really do have impact in the spiritual world with our prayer and with our fasting and our time spent with God. She said, do not eat or drink for 3 days, night or day, and I and my attendants will fast as you do. When this is done, I will go to the king, even though it is against the law. And if I die, I die. So Mordecai went away and carried out all of Esther's instructions. I like that. I like what he told her. This wasn't an accident, Esther. You were placed here for such a time as this. And I love her response. I agree, Mordecai. I want you to partner with me. I want you to fast with me. I want you and the people to pray for me. I'm going to go do what needs to be done. I'm going to do it by faith. And if I die, I die. And she wouldn't die, as we'll soon learn in our next video. She would actually live, and it would be Haman that would come about to his death. But I just want to share with you the importance of trusting God, believing God, and stepping out by faith. Because sometimes we get put in situations that we don't understand, but God will impress things upon our hearts, or will speak to us through his word, and he'll call us to do something that will take a step of faith. And sometimes there's a risk that comes with that step of faith. But I want you to know that when we step out and we do things God's way, he'll go before us. As he said to Abraham, I'm your shield and your exceeding great reward. He'll reward you, but before he rewards you, he protects you. Be blessed today.